How much HTML and CSS do you need to know today before you can move on to JavaScript? This is the age-old question that I'm asked all the time, and I want to help y'all understand. HTML and CSS are not programming languages, but they are also not easy. If there's something that I've heard over my last 7 years in tech, is that HTML and CSS is easy. If an engineer of any type has ever said that HTML and CSS is easy, then they probably never had to build a complicated website. You try building a website that looks great on an ultra-wide monitor, on an iPad, on a laptop, on a cell phone, on an iPhone Pro Max, on an iPhone Pro, on an iPhone Mini, on Internet Explorer, Safari, and Google Chrome. That doesn't even include on making sure that your website loads as fast as possible, no matter how fast or slow your internet is. Building something in HTML and CSS is literally like trying to paint a picture with words. Instead, you're painting a picture with literally markup languages. So if anyone ever tries to discourage you from learning code or pursuing front-end development and first learning HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, ignore those dudes. It takes years to learn and be really good at, and to be honest, it's also extremely fun. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty of HTML and CSS, I want to talk about something that has been a game changer, and it's called PixelFree Studio. In web development, turning a design into a website can be a tedious process, time-consuming, and let's not even start on the error-prone nature of writing code from scratch. But here is where PixelFree Studio flips the script. It's not just another tool. It's your end-to-end solution for turning almost anything into perfect code. With PixelFree, you're not bogged down by repetitive tasks or worrying over errors. And for those who felt the pinch of developer layoffs due to shortages, PixelFree Studio is like having an extra pair of hands minus the overhead. They're rolling out new templates that are not only sleek, but also customizable, giving you a solid foundation for any project. And their code generation, it's a game changer. Imagine anchoring your project in the design phase down to the last pixel. Then with a click, you're able to generate professional level code in not 1, but 6 languages. We're talking about HTML, Vue, React, Angular, C# for web apps and desktop applications, and eventually working for any language, future and present. And for my Figma folks, PixelFree Studio has your back. The Figma to Code feature is about to make your workflow up to 10 times faster than Webflow. And we're talking about human readable code that's reliable and clean. So if you're ready to elevate your productivity and make your life easier, make sure to check out PixelFree Studio in the link in the description below. Okay, next. People are spending way too much time learning HTML and CSS. It is frustrating. With the amount of people I speak to literally on a daily basis in my mentorship program, everyone is learning HTML, everyone is learning CSS. Maybe a few folks are learning Python here and there, right? But the one thing that everyone has in common is they're doing the same thing over and over again. And I mean, they're literally going through the same tutorial trying to learn HTML, CSS because they don't fully understand it, because they don't know when to move on. But the mistake that they're making is thinking that in the first place, you need to master HTML. In the first place, that you need to master CSS, when that is not the truth, when that is not a fact whatsoever. Aspiring developers tend to think that we need to know how to make our websites look pretty. Nope, false. Why? Because while you're a web developer or a front-end developer, guess who else your company will hire? They will hire someone named a UI UX designer. And what will that person do? What is their job? Their job is to create beautiful websites with Photoshop, with XD, with Figma. And then your job is to take what they drew with literally a pen or a mouse, is to rebuild that very same thing, but with HTML and CSS. Then, the next question then is, how much HTML and how much CSS do I need to know? The answer is not a lot. To be honest, I think that the maximum amount of time that you should spend on HTML in the first place is a month, probably even 2 weeks. That's it. And then you move on to CSS. And so how much HTML do you need to know? Let's just talk about the basics. Let's talk about the bare minimum. You need to know the basic elements. You need to know what the HTML tags are. Within the HTML tags, there's the header, then there's the body, and then there's the footer. That's it. You need to also learn how to use paragraphs. What are divs used for? What's the H1 tag? How do you create an image, right? What's the image element? What is the anchor tag used for? You have to basically understand how to display an image and then how to display text onto the browser, and how to stack it upon each other. That's it. That's all you need to know in HTML. Of course, there's always going to be so much more you need to learn, but we're talking about the bare minimum. And then when you learn the basics foundation, build a basic website. It can look exactly like Craigslist, and that's totally fine. Craigslist is what a website looks like when there's not a lot of CSS. To be honest, barely any CSS. Once you learn how to build a basic HTML website like that, then you move on to CSS. And to be able to learn that, the HTML part again, should only take 2 to 4 weeks tops. To be honest, less than 4 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. And then you move on to CSS. Do not spend more than a month for HTML, or else you'll be wasting your time trying to master something you don't need to master, and you won't master until you build websites in the first place. And then you move on to CSS. CSS is like hiring an interior designer to come into your ugly, empty house and make it look beautiful. Literally, that's what CSS does. CSS takes the foundation of a home, of a website, and builds something beautiful around it. Makes it more interactive. CSS makes a website mobile friendly so that the same website that looks great on your 27-inch monitor, on your ultra-wide monitor, looks just as amazing on your cell phone. Whether if it's a iPhone Pro Max or an iPhone Mini. When it comes to CSS, I'd say the #1 priority that you need to have is to learn how to make websites look beautiful on every browser. Whether if it's on Google Chrome, as your Firefox, whether if it's on a mobile cell phone, on an iPhone Mini, on an iPhone Pro Max, on the ultra-wide monitor. How do you do that? Media queries. And on top of that, you need to learn things like classes. What are classes used for? How to create different colors, different fonts, how to use CSS libraries or frameworks like Tailwind CSS. Tailwind's amazing. It is a game changer. Check it out. If you want to go to an older one, you can use Bootstrap or use CSS processors like Less or Sass. On top of that, that's pretty much all you need to know. Once you learn the bulk of how to make things mobile friendly, how to use whips, how to center a div, those basic things, you can move on. The max amount of time you should spend on learning CSS is probably 2 to 3 months tops. That's it, right? 2 to 3 months tops. Why CSS is harder than HTML. But why do I say your goal is to move on from CSS as fast as possible? Because you will not learn HTML CSS well until you start building things. If you're stuck in tutorials trying to learn HTML, CSS, how to use Flexbox, you name it, and learn those things too, but if you just take tutorials over and over again and not try to build things, you won't learn anything. If you don't learn how to debug and build things and fail and make mistakes, you won't learn anything. Your goal when it comes to HTML, CSS is to learn the basics and move on. Move on to JavaScript as fast as you can, because it's JavaScript that will determine if you can get a job or not. It's through being technical and knowing JavaScript well enough that I determine if you can become a developer in the first place. Last but not least, I want to reiterate, HTML and CSS is not easy. It is hard. The amount of backend developers that say it's easy, say it because they've never really built a complicated website. Be patient with yourself, but understand that you will never understand everything until you get a job. So be patient, then eventually move on. You'll be good to go. I hope this video helps. By the way, y'all, if you want more tips on HTML, CSS, I'll make sure I'll leave a cheat sheet in the link in the description below. Anyway, I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.